Hello friends on the interwebs. In this video we're just going to briefly have a chat about what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, and maybe even grappling for that matter. You know, you can do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a kimono or a gi. You could do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with only a rash guard and shorts, which is no gi grappling if you're not familiar with that. And a few things here that are really important to consider if you are wanting to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or you have just started and you find yourself ever so slightly frustrated, because there are a lot of things that go on when you're on the mats. Let's say it's your first couple of weeks, maybe first couple of months. You've learned a few positions, you've learned a few escapes and a couple of submissions, but still things just don't make a lot of sense just yet. So hopefully this video will clarify some of those things. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as you can just see from the name, stems primarily from Brazil, but it was the Japanese people who moved to Brazil who then taught people such as Helio Gracie and so on and so forth what they knew, and they took that art and then developed what we now know as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But in the translation from Japanese history into Brazilian history into English history, and sort of, I suppose, versions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you can call it that, you know what I mean, there has been a big misunderstanding of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. It's often shared to be the gentle art. There is nothing gentle about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at all. I made this huge mistake when I first started many years ago to think that it was a very gentle art and you didn't have to work hard for your submissions and things like that, which is silly because I had a bit of a wrestling background, so I should have known better, but I kind of bought into the whole thing about the gentle art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, what the translation actually is, and the translation of Jiu-Jitsu, is the art of suppleness or the art of flexibility. This was taught to me by a friend of mine who's honestly my bigger brother, and he's got, you know, his black belts in ninjutsu and so on and so forth, and it's a very traditional kind of art that stems from Japan as well. And the translation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in this instance would be the art of suppleness and flexibility. Does this mean that you have to be incredibly flexible to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Probably not. Is it going to be worthwhile for you to improve your flexibility long term? Absolutely. It's going to make positions easier, it's going to make submissions easier, it's going to make defense easier, and you can do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for longer without getting injured. Now, in saying all of this, what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Jiu-Jitsu? It is a martial art that is primarily ground-based. You know, so if you look at karate or you look at taekwondo, I've done both of them, we tend to be standing upright and you're throwing a lot of kicks, some throws and punches as well, but it's very much kicking based, right? You don't have a lot of ground work. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the complete opposite. You have some throws, such as, you know, judo-inspired throws and adapted throws from other sports, but then the rest of the fight primarily takes place on the ground. And you can score points if you're doing, you know, sports-based competitions. So you can pass a guard, you can secure a mount or a back position to get a particular number of points, and you can win matches on points, not just submissions. Of course, the most traditional and arguably the most, I suppose, martial arts-y kind of way of looking at it is to submit people with really, really good techniques, right? So that's a clear win. If someone taps, you know, they give up. They've kind of said, you've killed me, I win. I win, not the person, of course. So that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a nutshell. But the beautiful thing is that people that are small, just like myself, maybe you find yourself wanting to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because you're a bit smaller in size, or maybe even if you're bigger and you go against other bigger opponents, you have the chance to actually manipulate their body to win. And that's an essential thing when it comes to combat sports, and especially ground-based combat sports, is that it's all about how I can manipulate your posture and body in space so that I can get into a more advantageous position. And when I'm in that advantageous position, it's about how I can control that position for me then to be able to apply more force to one small area of your body compared to how much force you can use to resist that force that I apply. So let's say that, I have your arm in this position here, you're really, really strong, and you can start defending and moving your arm so I can't submit you. But if I can control the rest of your body in a way so that this force here is going to be futile in the defense against all the force that I apply to that limb, I'm going to win that submission. And that's the beautiful thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's also a forever changing and evolving game. You will see that all these guys are doing leg locks now. That is nothing new, but certain people like Jonathan Danaher and so on and so forth have brought that into light again. So a lot of people are now focusing on leg locks, and then there's new kinds of leg locks and all these things evolving, as we go. But what you have to remember, if you're only starting out or you're reasonably new to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or any other grappling art for that matter, you must learn to focus on the basics. You need to understand the different positions, because it's almost like human chess. If I'm in your close guard, I have a particular objective and you have a particular objective. If I'm in side control, top or bottom, the objective changes, right? If I pass your guard and I've got control over your legs, I have a different objective and goal compared to if I haven't done that yet and I'm standing upright and you're on your back on the ground. Cool. So there are so many different positions and there are so many things that you need to consider based on how your opponent moves. So my suggestion to you would be to start studying each position so you understand what to do and what your outcome primarily is in each single position. And then from there, start drilling and set up a structure where when you learn a new move, you practice at a very low intensity, let's say 10% effort and speed. So you're just starting to recognize the movements. And then as you can recognize the movements without thinking about them, you add a bit of speed, maybe 5% speed. So now you're at 15% speed. But still, you need to be able to recognize where you go wrong and where you could improve. And do this in an active kind of fashion, not just passive. But that means that the opponent and yourself, you're playing almost a bit of jiu-jitsu chess, okay? So let's say that I'm in side control top, you're in side control bottom. I've taught you 2 escapes. I've taught you 2 defenses to 2 particular submissions. Now my goal at 15% effort and speed is to make a move. Maybe I start setting up a submission. You recognize that, then you start defending, and then you start going on the counter offensive to start maybe sweeping me or something similar. This way, you're going to create a really good foundation, and you're not going to get injured, and you're not going to get exhausted, so you can actually come back and do this stuff every single day. In terms of exactly how you decide to, structure all of that, that's entirely up to yourself. Personally, I like to do it over 6 or 7 days a week. And then every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, I have 1 session a week where I go a bit harder to test out the different strategies that I've been working on under a bit more pressure. Cool. I hope this video here gives you a bit more, I suppose, structure, a bit more hope in terms of where to go and a bit of direction rather on where to go with your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu early on. Learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did and spend years just rocking up to class and that's it. Create structure. It's going to be a lot more rewarding. You're going to have a lot more fun, and your skills on the mat are literally going to skyrocket in comparison to only just rocking up to classes. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel. If you have any friends that would need to see this video, share it with them, tag them in the comments below, and make sure that they subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you haven't done so, please subscribe as well.